Hi guys, it's me, Mr. Bertoch, your incredibly handsome science teacher, and in this video, we're going to learn about tides. Avast ye, me half-sized humans. Okay, so I didn't do a very good pirate impression, but that was my best. I'm way too handsome to be a pirate, after all. But pirates, and anyone else has ever been to the ocean, I don't know why I picked pirates, just mostly so I could try to be one. There is a skeleton behind me, after all. I could have picked anybody who's ever been to the ocean. Has had to deal with something called tides. Maybe you have seen or experienced tides. If you live by the ocean, or even if you've been there on vacation, chances are pretty good that you've seen tides. So, once upon a time, in the mythical, mysterious land of Hawaii, I took my children on a vacation and we set up in this nice little spot on the beach, and it was really cool. There's this little alcove, and it's like this little. We ended up with our own little private beach kind of area, and we were able to had rocks on both sides, and it was just real small, like 15 feet, 20 feet across. So we set up all our chairs there, and we, as a family, we were swimming around in the shallow water. But as the day went on, what do you suppose happened? The place where we had our chairs set up, slowly got overtaken by the ocean. The tides, the water got deeper and deeper and deeper, and we had to keep moving our chairs until we ran out of beach. And by the end of the day, there was like nowhere left. There was no beach left there. Well, not really the end of the day, but after a few hours that we were there, we ran out of beach. So, but it's still a neat place. It was shallow water. It was really pretty. And we got pictures of sea turtles. But anyway, why did the water do that to us? Is it because it was jealous of my handsomeness? Almost certainly. But also because of something called tides. Tides are the movement of water around the ocean. And sometimes the water gets deeper and sometimes it gets shallower. Well, why? Why is it doing that? What is causing the water to do that? So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. And by the end of this video, your goal is that you shall understand. This is like an order, okay? You shall understand. It's a requirement. What happens, what tides are, and what causes them. So the first thing we need to understand in order to understand tides is that all objects in the universe, including you, have gravity. If anything with atoms has at least a little bit of gravity, yes, you have your own gravity. You are like a tiny little planet with your own gravity. The moon has gravity, the earth has gravity, and so too does the sun. And gravity is like an attractive force, kind of like me, attractive, right? And a force of attractiveness. Anyway, the moon is an attractive object because of its gravity. So as the moon orbits the earth, because the moon is constantly orbiting around the earth, it is attracting the earth, and the earth is attracting it. That's why it's orbiting the earth. They're attracting each other. The gravity of the moon is tugging on the earth. Well, the rocks feel that gravity. So too does the ocean and the atmosphere. But the rocks can't do much about it because they're kind of fixed in place. So they're just kind of stuck there. But the water, the ocean water, and the atmosphere, they are a lot freer to move around. And so they can kind of bulge towards the moon. They can kind of, wherever the moon is, you get a bulge of water that is pointing at the moon. And that bulge is what causes tides. So the bulge stays right where it's at, because the moon, it does orbit the Earth, but it takes 27-ish days to complete one orbit. And so as the moon is, where it's at, it's there pretty much because it's moving, but slowly over a month period of time. That bulge stays where it's at. But what's the Earth doing? The Earth is rotating, right? Once every 24 hours. And so as the Earth rotates, it rotates through that bulge. And when you are on the beach and the bulge gets to you, where you are on the beach, then the water gets deeper. And then as the Earth continues to rotate, it rotates back out the other side of that bulge, and the water level goes down again. So when you are at high tide, you can be pretty darn certain that the moon is either above you or it's on the opposite side of the Earth. And that's something we need to talk about to understand tides, is that there are two bulges that form. One on the side of the Earth where the moon is, and one on the other side, opposite, also gets a bulge that forms. Well, wait a minute. Why? Why do you get a bulge that forms on the other side of the Earth? That doesn't make any sense. There's no object back there that's tugging on the water. So why in the heckens would you get a bulge on the backside of the Earth? Well, think about what's happening. Consider, think about, ponder in your brain what is going on. Because the more you can visualize this, the better you're going to understand it. It's always best to comprehend things, to be able to visualize them. I care far less about you remembering vocabulary words than I do about your ability to visualize what's happening in science. Because if you understand the concept but you don't remember the word, who cares? Right? Vocabulary words are just made up words anyway. Scientists make up vocabulary words to impress girls. That's a fact. Because they want to be like, hey, did you know about neap tides? And that sounds so cool. And then the girl's like, oh, he's so dreamy. So if you don't remember the name of things, it's less, I mean, you should try to remember the vocabulary words, but yeah, it's less important to remember the vocabulary words than it is to be able to understand and visualize the concept. So let's visualize what is occurring with tides. Why am I getting two bulges on either side of the planet? So the moon is sucking the water from the sides of the planet, the Earth, towards where the moon is. But the water on the back side of the Earth, it's too far away. It doesn't really get sucked around very much. So the water in the middle of the Earth, on the two sides of the Earth, goes down, and you get a bulge on the front facing the moon, but you also get a bulge on the back because the water back there wasn't sucked up. It wasn't pulled around the planet. And so it's deeper there too. So I get two bulges, one on the side with the moon where the water was pulled, and then one on the back of the Earth, I said sides of the moon, I meant Earth, one on the front of the Earth towards the moon, where the water is pulled around the Earth and pulled forward, and one on the back where it's left there and it's not sucked up. And so the sides go down, the front gets bigger, the back stays the normal depth. And so I have two bulges. The front side is a bigger tide than the back side, but you have two high tides. So as the Earth rotates, it's going to have two high tides every day, and it's going to have two low tides every day, because as the Earth rotates, it's going to go through the bulge where the moon is, and then the side where the water's been sucked away, and then the back where there's a bulge where the water didn't get pulled forward, and then the other low side where it's been pulled to the front, and then that bigger bulge in the front where it's pulled towards the moon again. So every day there are two high tides, and there are also two low tides. Now, let's talk about spring tides and neap tides. And neap, that makes me think of the Roadrunner. But except that he says meep, I think, and not neap. Meep. But anyway, So a spring tide, and we are not talking about the season. We're talking about like a spring, like it's springy. Okay, and boing, boing. Okay, a spring tide is a bigger tide, and a neap tide is a smaller tide. So once a month, I will have the spring tide. I'll be in spring tide, and then once a month, 2 weeks later, I'll have a neap tide, and I'll go through the spring tide and neap tide every month. Well, why? Because here's the deal. The sun also has gravity, just like the moon. Now, the sun is much further away, and so its gravity, its effect on the oceans is way less, but it still has gravity, and so it still is having an impact. So when the moon and the sun are in a straight line, either that the moon is between the sun and earth, or the moon is behind the earth on the other side of the earth. But when they're in a straight line, they're parallel, they're in a straight line, the force of gravity of the moon and the sun combine, and that makes a spring tide, because the tide is bigger, it is more springy, it bounces up bigger. So spring tides are bigger tides. When the moon is on the side, it is perpendicular, it creates a right angle. Then the sun and the moon are working against each other. The sun is pulling one way, the moon is pulling the other way, and that creates a smaller high tide. You still have high and low tide, but it's smaller. So we call that a neap tide. We call it a neap tide. Spring tides are bigger, neap tides are smaller, and the cycle is monthly as the moon rotates around the earth. And that is what tides are, and how pirates have to know. If you're going to be a good pirate, if your ambition is to grow up and be a pirate, then you will need to know all about tides. But also, if you're going to surf, and just also, it's important to understand and to be able to visualize how the world works, because you want to be a smart person, a smart pirate and or person, and be able to understand all the different ways that the earth is functioning, because that's what intelligent people do. They understand stuff. Hi guys, thanks for watching my video. These rambling science videos where I go unscripted and just kind of barf up all the science knowledge out of my head are part of a series that go along with an online class that I teach, which you can sign up for if you go to handsomescienceteacher.com. I also have a whole bunch of free resources for homeschoolers. I have hundreds of articles on every topic that covers your entire science curriculum from 5th through 8th grade. I have online games and quizzes, all curated and written by this handsome guy, a science teacher with, well, three degrees, but 2 of them are in science. So it's targeted right to and directly to your science students. So sign up, subscribe to the channel, and I release lots of videos. Also, in addition to these ones, lots of little short videos that are like 2 minutes long that cover science topics. Those ones you don't get to see my handsome face, but they're still good videos, and they're much more targeted, and those ones are scripted, so you don't have to hear me like you are right now going blah blah blah. The end. Subscribe. Thank you. Goodbye.